Hey, how are you doing? It's the 5th day. It's the last day of the sprint. You are almost done. We got one more thing to do today, and then you can just check this one off the list. What a week it's been. You figured out your superpowers. You figured out who your ideal client is. You mapped out their buyer's journey. You worked through the template to create at least one article to really attract them, to bring them in. So the last thing we want to do today is just do one more final review of your profile and make sure that your calls to action are as powerful and as intentional as you hope they are. You know your superpowers. You know who your ideal client is. You know that your profile doesn't have to appeal to everyone. It has to attract your ideal client. And now you know the buyer's journey. And we mentioned this just at the end yesterday, but we went over so much stuff. I felt like it was really necessary that we take one day and just really make sure that we've got the last nail in this coffin, right? We want to make sure that you have a call to action that's going to invite your reader to take the next step. This reminds me of a story. When I moved from one town to another town, I would say about 10 years ago. And when we moved, we needed a new dentist, among other things. And I think it was in the mail, something came, and it was a local dentist, and it said something like, you know, for new patients, we'll do a free teeth whitening. And I thought, you know what, I could probably use that. That would be a good idea. And now I'm going to talk with my mouth closed because you're going to check out my teeth. But guess what happened? When we filled it out, they never responded. They never responded, and we ended up going with a different dentist. Well, it turns out I actually became friends with that dentist, the one that had offered the teeth cleaning. And I remember one time I think we were watching a Mariners game, or we were hanging out at his house. I can't remember what we were doing. And I said, you know, when we first moved here, we actually filled that out. And he goes, oh, I know. He says, we saw that and you never responded. And I thought, what? No, you never responded. He's like, yeah, we did. So it is true. I have about probably at any time 10 to 30,000 unread emails on my various email accounts. We get spammed with so much stuff. And a lot of times we use an autoresponder. Someone fills something out, it sends a little mail, and that goes to junk, or we miss it. So whether he sent it or he didn't send it, I think he probably did. He's a pretty capable guy. But my impression as a prospect was, you know, you never responded. And so it's really important for us to think through the entire call to action process. What are we going to do as a result of someone taking that step? So that's what today's really going to talk about. And I've got a nice worksheet that I've put together to help you do this. So here we've got our worksheet. This is today's worksheet right here. Go ahead and print that off if you haven't taken a look at that. And you can do this in two ways. One is you can use it to review your existing calls to action to make sure that they're really good. Or if you're just trying to come up with a new call to action, this becomes a nice checklist that you can use to make sure that your calls to action are going to be having the impact, that they're going to have the impact that you want them to have. So let's go ahead and look at this. Let's just look at it with the assumption that you're going to create a new call to action to begin with. And so we look at the first part. I have created a list of a whole bunch of calls to action, typical calls to action that you'll find on profiles and posts and articles and things like that on the web. So first one, it just says circle a call to action that you want your prospects to take online. So what is it that you want them to do? And probably that's like zero, right? Zero step is when they come visit my profile, what do you want them to do? Your ideal client has shown up, right? First aid material, we're not taking them to the finish line. We are just going to move them to the next step. So what do you want them to do? What do you have to build a relationship with them step by step through the process? So you pick one, and then what we're going to do is we're going to answer some questions to really just make sure we've thought through this process. So the second part here, answer the questions for the call to action that you circled. Okay. And again, if you're reviewing this for an existing one, then you could do that as well. You might want to pick one you've already got on your profile or in an article. So number 2, answer the questions for the call to action you circled. What value does your prospect receive for taking this action? So all of a sudden we want to get out of your head and we want to get into the the head of your prospect. And you're asking me to do this thing. Why do I want to do this? What's in it for me? Okay, that's a big shift here between what you want them to do and what they want to do. So what value can you articulate your call to action in such a way that it's going to show them that there's value? In fact, that's what the second question is. Does your prospect perceive the value being offered? It might be that you're offering something of value, but they don't even see it. They don't even recognize it. So you have to spell it out for them. It's not that you're talking down to them. It's just you're making it very clear. So what value does your prospect receive for taking this action? Is there value in it? If they sign up for your email list, what's the value in that? If they're going to download an infographic or join a newsletter or visit your website, what is the value in it? Is there value? Step one. Step two, can you articulate this in such a way that they perceive the value? It's like, oh, wow, yeah, I really should do this. This will be of value to me. And then how can this action align you as a guide to your prospect? So remember, it's not just about giving them information. It's about aligning yourself as a guide. Okay, so maybe the call to action is to visit your website. Why do you want them to visit it? What's the value there? Well, I've got some really good case studies on it. And how do you align yourself as a guide? Well, these case studies show the way I've helped people solve some of their problems. So there it is. That's the information we need to share. So it might be in the About Us section on your LinkedIn profile. We're not just going to say, visit my website for more information. We're going to say, really encourage you to visit my website. I've got several case studies there that show the way I've helped many businesses that might be facing some of the same challenges that you have. And all of a sudden they're thinking, oh, wow, yeah, I should go check that out. You see how we're making it clear the benefits to them and the reasons why they should take this step, okay? What will you do for your prospect after they take this action? So a lot of times we're just thinking about getting them to the next step, but we haven't thought about what to do next. Once they get to your website or once they take this action, they sign up for your newsletter, they read down below for more information, what are you going to do after that? So we're going to tie all these steps together and you're going to have multiple calls to action. In the industry, often we call this a funnel. And so you're going to have them enter a funnel. They're going to give you their email in exchange for something. And that's just the first of several steps. So what we want to do is we want to think about what is the next step. Remember my dentist friend, okay? Because I didn't respond to the email he sent me, apparently he knew it. He never brought it up until we talked about it years later. So could he have had some fallbacks, some extra precautions? Like once he got my email, he could have sent regular content on a regular basis. He could have called me. He could have sent something in the mail. But if you just rely on that one moment, often we miss it. Whether it's his fault or my fault, we'll never know. But I never saw it. I never saw any response. So what will you do after your prospect? What will you do for your prospect after they take this action? We want to think through this a couple steps down the road. And finally, where will you add this call to action on your social media? So is this something that's on your profile? Is it in a social post? Is it in an article? And that's where you really want to think about auditing your existing calls to action. So I would say go to your profile and look at where all your calls to action are. The one in the About, maybe you added one. Remember in the first sprint on the last day, we talked about putting a call to action in the image on the cover photo. Maybe you've got some in the About section. Maybe you've got some buried down in some extra content that you have on your site. Wherever they're at, walk through this checklist and let's make sure that your calls to action are more than anything perceived as value to them and aligning you as their guide, because this is going to make a big difference. It's these little tiny things that make a big difference when it comes to aligning them to see us as a person to help them solve their problems. That is it. Okay, that's not too hard. That's a pretty easy one. So this is a great checklist. You're going to use it all the time. Whenever you're doing calls to actions, come check this out. And guess what? Holy cow, that's the end of this sprint. So don't forget to do your homework. But once you're done with that, of course, as always, you've got a chance to let us know how you're doing. There is one more module you'll see right over here, somewhere over here. You can actually print off the certificate of completion for completing this sprint, put it on your wall, right? Put it in your office. Like, hello people, I'm sprinting, I'm crushing it. Share it on your social media. Share it, of course, in the Boss Social community. If you do that, go ahead and don't forget to use our hashtag, which is I attract my ideal clients. Yay, my social media is attracting my ideal clients. You know how to play the game now, and you are well on your way. So good job. I hope you're feeling good about yourself. Have a great day. Don't forget to do the step. Look at your calls to action before you call it a day. And good job. You're finished.